Tax Calculation 2024 updates. My name is Kai Liang, and I will be your moderator and one of the presenters today. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Maple 9, Principal Engineering Manager, Kai Liang, Senior Program Manager, Ekaterina Podkosi, Senior Program Manager. Ekaterina, over to you to get us started.
Thank you for the introduction, Kai. And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Let's move to our agenda. Today's sessions, we picked some major functionalities that our team released in recent updates, and we would like to share with you. They involve additional currency exchange rate type for sales tax calculation, project transaction integration with tax calculation, connection to an external tax solution provided via Universal Tax Rate API, and last but not least topic is we will share the important update concerning tax calculation unification. So let's begin from the first topic on our agenda. It's the exchange rate type for sales tax. And first of all, I would like to mention that it was one of the top rated ideas on the idea portal in tax area. And I'd like to thank for submitting ideas on how to improve our product and for voting for the ideas. And this really helps us to understand and properly evaluate the demand for new features and to build our roadmap accordingly. So the exchange rate that is used for tax calculation and can differ from the exchange rate that is used for company accounting functions. With this feature, you can select the exchange rate that is used to calculate tax to correctly report your tax returns. It also supports direct recalculation from the transaction currency to tax currency and supports adjusting amounts in tax currency. So some prerequisites, some important prerequisites to mention for this feature. This functionality is available as of version 35. And it's available only for business processes that are enabled for tax calculation in tax calculation parameters. And also it depends on the global feature that was released in the past, and the name is date of VAT register functionality. So with that, let's switch to the short demo that we recorded to illustrate this functionality.
After enabling the Enable Exchange Rate Type for Sales tax feature in the Feature Management workspace, you will be able to switch on the Enable Exchange Rate Types for Sales tax parameter in the General Ledger parameters. You will be prompted that you are changing the tax calculation method for operations in foreign currency. Tax amounts will be converted directly from the transaction currency to the tax currency using the exchange rates set for the exchange rate types for sales tax. And also, you will receive a message that you'll need to recalculate taxes for the unposted documents. After that, you will be able to select exchange rate type for tax reporting purposes that is different from the one that is selected in the ledger parameters of the legal entity. You will need to set up sales tax receivable and sales tax payable difference and difference offset accounts in the ledger posting groups for sales tax codes. Once completed the setup of the functionality, you can post invoices that use foreign currency and adjust the exchange rate and tax amounts on the Sales Tax Transactions page. On the Sales Tax Transactions page of the document that's being processed, you can review the exchange rates, amount origin, and tax amounts in the accounting currency, reporting currency, and tax currency. These amounts are shown for both exchange rate types, the one that's set on the ledger page and the one that's set on the General Ledger parameters page. You can update the exchange rate based on the rate provided in the incoming document. Subsequently, the tax amounts in the tax currency will be recalculated accordingly. When a document is posted, you can view any differences in sales tax amount that are caused by the difference between the tax currency exchange rate and the accounting currency exchange rate for your organization. An additional tax transaction is created to reflect the amounts for tax reporting purposes in the tax currency. The amounts in the tax currency will be reported in your VAT declaration. That concludes the Enable Exchange Rate Type for Sales tax feature demo. Thank you for watching.
So next topic is integration with project transactions. And let me start with tax calculation update. So as you know, we extend tax calculation integration with more and more transaction types in finance and operations applications. And starting from the 10.038 release, this integration is available for project management and accounting transactions. You can enable this functionality like similar to other previously integrated types. You just need to pick projects in the business process in the tax calculation parameters, and tax will be calculated according to the tax feature configuration for all the available project transactions. They involve project invoice proposals, different journal types like hour, expense, item, and fee, project quotations, and of course, project operation integration journal. And similar to other transaction types, you can always override sales tax group that are determined according to your applicability rules in your tax feature using the override sales tax functionality. So last topic on my part, but not the least, is related to enhancements in India GST, TDS, and TCS taxes for project accounting transactions that team released in the 10.035 version update. So when the feature is enabled, Indian indirect and direct taxes are available in Project Integration Journal. This feature provides an option that lets users to review transactions and adjust tax attributes and accounting attributes as needed in all types of integration journals. Default tax information and TDS, TCS groups are included in all types of journals like gain, hour, fee, item, and expense journal. And in Dynamics 365 Finance, you can edit the default tax attributes in integration journals and project invoice proposals. So GST calculation is included on the tax document for expense integration journals, and TDS, TCS calculations is also included in withholding tax in expense integration journals. So with that said, let me give the floor to Kai to talk about next topic on connection to external tax providers.
Thank you, Katerina. So next, let me introduce the Universal Tax Rate API feature. So this feature is developed in response to a highly voted idea in our idea portal to address the issue where for countries like USA and for enterprise customers operating in many different tax jurisdictions, a large variety of tax rates and tax applicability rules are to be configured and maintained. In these cases, external solution providers can simplify the complexity and reduce your maintenance overhead. Hence, we worked closely with our ISVs like Vertex and Avalara in the past year to build and make our tax calculation framework available to external ISVs via a set of standard APIs defined by Microsoft. This framework ensures stable and secure access to the external tax solutions. By its nature, because it shares the same tax data model and the payload in transactions, a seamless integration with Dynamics 365 applications is inherited from our tax calculation service. As you may see in the diagram here, under this framework, Microsoft team will be focusing more on extending tax calculation to further first-party applications, to support further country localizations, and to ensure a seamless upgrade for your system, while our ISVs will be focusing more on the configuration and the timely updates of tax rates, tax applicability rules, and other statutory requirements for numerous tax jurisdictions. Starting 10.039, you can enable the feature, enable external tax solution providers for tax calculation service in feature management to start a preview of the Universal Tax Rate API. The current supported country is the United States. And the same as tax calculation service, You can further control the relevant functionalities by legal entity and by business process. Of course, thanks to the tax calculation unification, the Tier 2 environment is no longer a precondition for this feature as well. Yeah, we'll see it in the combined demo shortly. First, we'll see a few highlights for the functions that have been made available by the Universal Tax Rate API. The first one, encrypted connection. The Universal Tax Rate API supports an encrypted connection via Azure Keyboard. This connection helps ensure the security and the privacy of data that are transmitted to your tax solution provider. The second is address validation. So this functionality helps you validate and update addresses that are maintained or to be maintained in your global address book for an accurate tax calculation and tax determination. Third, accrual of use tax. So in the United States, the buyer is liable to use tax for purchases of taxable items and services which were not fully taxed by the seller. This function helps you as a buyer to assess the potential use tax liability on you when you receive your vendor invoice. The use tax transactions will be populated if the sales tax amount on the invoice is lower than the tax amount assessed in this procedure. And finally, the overcharge tolerance. In addition to the use tax scenario, if the sales tax amount on the vendor invoice is higher than the tax amount assessed by your tax solution provider, with this functionality, you can choose to accept only those invoices on which the overcharged sales tax is still below the tolerance. Use that. So we'll see more details in the demo. Let me first hand over to Maple for the introduction of tax calculation unification.
Thank you, Kai. So for here, let me introduce the tax calculation unification. And in the left side, this is previous or what you are saying you are using now. Because for this unification, we are released in 10.039. And in the left side, this is the current architecture. So when you are enabling the tax calculation service, so the transaction, you click the sales tax button in the transaction in finance, it will trigger an API call to the tax calculation service. Then the service will fetch the test configuration and the test features from the global repo. And then with these configurations and setups, it will do the calculation based on some of the setup. So if you choose to do the calculation by the test calculation itself, then the service will calculate the result and the return. If you determine to using the third-party test rate API, then the test calculation will call the third-party test rate API to calculate test result, then return back to the transaction to further process showing the sales tax or to post the sales tax. And here in the left top corner, you will see the regulatory configuration service. So this is where you do the test configuration or maintain the test setups. And the content is saved in the global repo. And in the right side, that is the architecture after the unification. After the unification, you will see the major change here are 2 points. One is the test calculation is merged into the finance system. And second is the regulatory configuration service is also merged back to the finance as part of the globalization studio workspace. And also there are one more change here is the global repo. That is the place where we saved the configuration earlier, and now we're using the Dataverse repo to save the configurations. And let me also introduce the flow here is when you click the sales test button in the transaction, it will still trigger the test calculation. Then it will do the test calculation based on your setups, either by the engine itself or either call the third-party APIs, and then return back the result than for viewing the sales tax or posting the sales tax. So this is the major workflow. And for the configuration maintenance, you will go to the global validation studio workspace to maintain the configurations. Now let's see more what is the impact on you for this unification. So in overall, you can consider all the features or functionalities that you adopt today in the test calculation service. There will be no change. All the points are still supported. And even all the setups, configurations, and how you operation, your experience, everything, no change. You will consider that it will be just for you as a user. It's just a seamless stuff. That things only happens that Microsoft make this change, makes the movement from the test calculation service to finance test calculation. We did it underneath for you. And now let me introduce more details on what is changed and what is not changed. For what is changed here, first is the test calculation service is merged into Dynamics 365 Finance in 10.0.39. Second, the test feature setup is moved from regulatory configuration service to globalization studio workspace in finance. Third is the official test configuration storage is moved from global repro to database. The fourth one is a tier 2 is no longer the strict precondition to use the test calculation service. And also this will be a big benefit for you, as after this unification, you will not need to require tier 2 environment for your validation or for your testing purpose. You can use in the tier 1 environment afterward. So this is why we will highly encourage you to upgrade your environment to after the 10.0.39 versions. And then what is not changed here is all the test calculation behaviors in finance are not changed. The test calculation functionality are not changed, and the test feature, test configurations are not changed. And then what you need to do the uptake. So the answer is very simple. No, nothing need to update or uptake. Just a seamless change here for you. Just use it. Now let's give you some demo about the Universal Test Rate API and also the unification.
I'll demonstrate the enablement and the configuration for connecting an external tax solution provider with the Universal Tax Rate API feature. Starting 10.0.39, we are now able to do this directly in FNO system. To try the Universal Tax Rate API feature, you should first enable the feature in the feature management. Make sure you have enabled the dependent tax calculation service feature as well. The next thing is to engage and choose one ISV as your tax solution provider. The available ISV list can be found in our online documentation on Microsoft Learn portal. In general, the ISV shall provide you with their service credentials and following files. For the credentials, you can contact Microsoft support and let them bind you with our tax calculation team. We will guide you through the security configuration for the key vault setup in Azure platform and the client secret setup in FNO. For the files, you should get one XML and one or two JSON files. The XML is an ISV-defined tax configuration based on the tax data model we released for the Universal Tax Rate API. And the JSON files are ISV-defined tax features based on their tax configuration, which shall be imported to tax calculation. Now let's import the files. Go to Globalization Studio, find Microsoft repository. Open the global repository. Find and import the tax calculation data model for ISV integration. Now go back. In electronic reporting tax configuration, find the imported tax data model. Click Load from XML file. Find the XML, which is shared to you by your tax solution provider. Import it. Go back and click Tax Calculation tile. Click Import from JSON. Find and import the ISV tax feature. Your tax solution provider might provide you with a second JSON, which is an example for you to create the customer level tax feature. Import it as well. Now create a new version of the customer level feature. Click Edit. You can select the dependent tax feature and related environment here. Your tax solution provider will also guide you with other ISV-specific configurations and functions in this feature version. But most importantly, you should select the client ID and the client secret here. Click Test Connection. Okay, you are now connected to the external tax solution. Go back and complete the feature version. Now we can set up the tax calculation parameters in the required legal entity. In tax calculation parameters, enable tax solution provider. Pick the feature version which we just completed. Like tax calculation service, new tax codes that are defined in the tax feature will be imported to your legal entity. Select settlement period and the ledger posting group for the tax codes. Select business processes that shall use the external tax solution. Enable address validation and select USA in the supported countries regions. You can switch on the override address option to accept the address correction from your external tax solution provider during address validation. For the United States, and when you have selected purchase in the business process, you will further switch on the accrual use tax option to let your tax solution provider evaluate and populate the use tax transaction on the vendor invoice when applicable. Finally, you can further define the tolerance in percentage and the fixed amount for the maximum sales tax that can be overcharged by your vendor. Choose whether it should be a warning or an error message when it's over tolerance. Okay, we are done with the setting. Let's proceed to see the address validation functionality. There are multiple places where you can do the address validation, such as in the global address book, as well as the master data. Let's take the vendor master as an example. A validate button is now available in the address tab. Select one existing address or add a new address. Click Validate to trigger the request. Your tax solution provider will return the matching records to correct your input. such as the address format as well as additional address information to accelerate to an accurate tax calculation when using this address shipped from address. Pick the right address and let it override our input. Okay. Now let's scroll down to check the accrue use tax functionality. A new field, accrue sales tax type, is introduced to the invoice and the delivery tab in the vendor master. You can change the default behavior in this field at the vendor level. The default option is the legacy behavior. Change it to accrue use tax so that your tax solution provider will populate the use tax transaction for you when your vendor undercharges you sales tax. Change it to advanced to further control the system behavior when your vendor overcharges you sales tax on the invoice. You can define the vendor-specific tolerance fields here as well. Let's first create a vendor invoice with default behavior. You will notice that the accrue sales tax type field is also available on the invoice header. Let me change the unit price to 1,000 for a simple 5% sales tax calculation. So now by default, your tax solution provider shall determine the tax rate by the underlying delivery information and calculate the tax result, $50 for this invoice. This is the legacy behavior. Now, assuming the total sales tax printed on the vendor invoice is $25, select Accrue Sales Tax and input 25 in the vendor charged sales tax field. Click Sales Tax. A use tax transaction at $25 will be populated in addition to the vendor charged sales tax transaction. Finally, let's change the type to advanced. With this option, for the tax undercharge scenario, it will populate the use tax transaction as well, similar to the use tax option. But for the overcharge case, let's say your vendor charges you $51 for sales tax, which means they overcharged you $1 for sales tax on this invoice. The system will check the overcharge tolerance. Here, since we kept both tolerance fields as 0, so the $1 already exceeds our tolerance. An error message will pop out to stop the invoice posting process. Okay, I think that is all for the demo. And you are encouraged to already try these new functionalities in 10.039. And let me hand over to Maple for the an overview of tax calculation update.
Okay, thank you. So here is all the stuff, most of the stuff that the key features we shipped in the past 1 year or in the 2023 wave 1 and wave 2. So we categorize the most features in 4 categories. First is the tax calculation service. It will integration with the so for tax calculation, we integrate with many transactions. One is the invoice register, invoice pull, invoice approval, and the second is the project transactions and the project operation journals. For these, that we supported the project operations through the project operation journal. And third is about the integration with prepayment handling form. So also as Kate mentioned, as Katrina mentioned in the previous demo slides, we introduced test-specific exchange rate, and also now that tax calculation service merged to finance and operations as part of globalization studio workspace. Second category is the simplified integration. So for these, we provided test calculation, posting, address, validation APIs, and these APIs support the purchase, sales, free test invoice, journal, and transfer order and inventories. And for also we shared that it supports the US use tax accrual scenarios, and also it supports the project transaction as well. So for the third category is extended tax scenarios. So under these, we shipped the withholding tax estimation on vendor invoice, and also the test transaction data archival, which can relieve the big database for the tax transaction table, and also shipped the project integration journal with the India GST and withholding tax. So for Latin countries, we also supported the test scenarios there. And last but not least is the regulatory compliance side. In the past year, Brazil have some of the regulatory changes in the tax area. So we have shifted change to meet the compliance requirements in this area. Now let's open for the Q&A session and answer the questions you raised.
So the first one is the integration to Avalara Vertex part of the MS license? Can you comment on what extra cost comes with integration in TCS to Avalara Vertex transaction based? So basically we don't add any additional requirement on the Dynamics license for this feature. Because for a security connection perspective, we pretty much need to configure the Azure platform and leverage the Azure Key Vault to store the credentials provided by either Avalara or Vertex to you. And it might have a minor cost. It's like a 1 million operations for $3. And you definitely need to subscribe the tax service of Avalara and Vertex, and that is the extra cost which you need to contact them for details. Yeah. And the next question: when tax exchange rate will be posted, then do currency exchange rate gain loss account would automatically be debited, credit? I think, Katerina, you have answered.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so in general, yes, the sales tax difference will be posted on the accounts that are from tax code posting group, and I pasted documentation with contains some example of how these amounts are calculated and posted both on tax transaction and in voucher.
Next, will the tax API only work for US-based companies? Well, in 10.039, we have the scope of USA, but in general, we did not restrict the countries for the API, which means you basically can enable this external tax solution, this feature for all tax calculation service countries. And it relies on the ISV's roadmap and their supported countries to see if they can support the calculation for those countries. Yeah. And next, is global taxing deprecated, or will it be deprecated soon? I think, maybe this, will you take this?
Sure, I can answer that. And so this is it is on our roadmap to moving on the global the test engine to move to test calculation service. But for now, that we will share when we have the actual plan on that. But please expect this will take some time. And when we make it, we will having some another tech talk session to share with you all these updates. And for now, that we currently we just moving the tax calculation service into the finance. And also I can answer the next question, when will GT be replaced? I think this just, so it's on our roadmap. Please expect, it may take some time.
And the next question, will support multiple VAT registration numbers and enable exchange rate types for sales tax be now available for companies that are using external tax solution providers? I would say these are the feature mentioned are mainly developed and targeted for the EU region and Europe countries. So from the framework and the design perspective, these features will also be eventually inherited to made available for the API for external solution providers. So when we, for instance, later you heard or we announced that the APIs are like also available in EU countries, then these functionalities are definitely available for companies that are using external solution providers. Next, since the tax calculation is moved from RCS to D365 FO, is the possibility to use tax calculation for multi-tenants available? This is more like a technical question. Maple, if I don't know if you or me can take
sure.
For multiple tenants.
So actually, that when we are moved into FNO, so that means you can only trigger the test calculation inside the FNO, inside the same environment. So let's just consider like you are triggering the embedded standard test calculation engine. So in the same way. So you are not able to, for other environment, you cannot just having a cross-call the test calculation from one environment to another environment. So this is not possible. So you can trigger the environment within this finance operation environment. Yeah.
Okay. So then next, will there be any update additions to tax calculation, tax applicability rules within the tax service? For example, there's a parameter for line amounts, but not order amount. This is I think these are the requirements we would receive from time to time, and frankly speaking, we are more than appreciated to like learn these requirements. You can we will definitely take this requirement into consideration and to make it into our standard tax data model for tax calculation. In general, we are imagining that tax calculation shall be done via the same piece of the payload, which is extracted from different transactions. So additional fields which build the tax data model will be evaluated. We are continuously adding more fields and upgrade our tax data model to higher versions. And yes, please, you can forward these requirements either from the idea portal or directly to us, and we'll definitely evaluate these requirements. So next, how can we set up excess taxes? We have a customer buying alcohol beverage, and there are a lot of RNU size linked to that. And an idea. So excess taxes are also brought to us from time to time, and I would again suggest that you can host your request and the requirements in our idea portal under the tax page, and we actually monitoring these ideas in our idea portals proactively, and we'll address additional tax types. These are also like interesting topics to tax calculation. So far, tax calculations are designed for a better fit for VAT, for sales tax, use tax, these indirect taxes. And for excess taxes, we'll definitely see it also like one of the keys, which is a topic to be covered by tax calculation in the future.
Yes, I just wanted to say that actually there is already some idea on our idea portal to calculate some taxes on ingredients of product, right? And we are this under review as of now.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. The next question: within the tax service, we can currently manage columns to add additional criteria for calculating item, VAT group, and VAT groups. Will there be any new columns added?
So maybe I can answer that.
Okay.
So the answer can be yes. So definitely, this will depend on the business requirement and the customer needs. So if you see some additional columns that may be not supported now and still need to be added, you can raise the request in the idea portal. So the team will charge it based on the votes.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Maple. So yeah, basically these columns are, frankly speaking, in the tax configuration with some advanced configuration, might even be able to introduce new applicability rule tables, right? Yeah. Okay. Next, will it also work with invoice register and invoice approval? Well, yeah. If you mean the universal tax rate API, then yes, invoice register and the invoice approval are also integrated. So again, because we share the same framework with the current TCS, the tax calculation service, so basically all transactions that have been integrated with tax calculation service is by its nature inheriting this payload, and it is exposed to external tax ISVs for the API connection, for the connection with external tax solution. So yeah, yes, it is also supported. Okay, so next, is there a time frame for universal tax rate API feature to be supported in EU countries? Well, because these roadmaps are still under NDA, which we cannot disclose in this session. But in general, EU countries are on our roadmap. And I don't know if, Katerina, if you can share more details, your thoughts on this question.
Oh, no, you covered it well. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So next, how to set up an excise duty with VAT in country for India? Is it possible to map through GTE?
So it should be possible. Then, yeah, I think we have the documentation on how to extend in configuration.
So excise duty with VAT in country for India is also supported, right? So frankly speaking, in India, the indirect tax should be, well, the general rules are applied to the industry, right? For VAT, it's only like for the petrol goods or items. Anyway, you can forward your request to us, and we'll definitely evaluate the request and align with you. Yeah. Okay, next. I have a customer with EU legal entities would love to have the sales tax currency exchange rate feature. Do you need to move to RCS? They currently use standard VAT setup within D365. Yeah. So.
Yes, sure. So in general, this customer will need to use tax calculation functionality. However, it's not necessary in RCS, and actually starting from update of 39, the RCS was merged back to finance and operation as a globalization studio workspace. And there was a tech talk on this matter, and it should be available soon. And so in general, you will need to use tax calculation feature, and not necessarily in RCS, but in FNO. But it won't be available. This feature, the sales tax conversion feature for core tax, for standard VAT setup. So only for those processes that are attached to tax calculation.
So basically, additional tax setup need to be done in the globalization studio, right, for the sales tax currency feature. What are the benefits to using an external tax service with the universal tax rate API versus an existing ISV solution that doesn't use the API? Okay, right. So basically, the universal tax rate API simplify the integration of the external ISV solution, which means it actually reduces the potential issues you would meet when you upgrading your system to newer version for new functionalities, for new integrations, and for additional country localizations. So this can be the like a framework. So later you'll see the ISV solution is also moving in this direction. Okay, does this require Dataverse license? I think this is regarding the tax calculation merge or the RCS merge question. So basically, we don't anticipate additional license in the merge activity. Of course, for the universal tax rate API, if you select an external ISV and using their ISV solution, then the ISV, you may need a license of that ISV to use their solution. In general, from Dynamics 365, we don't expect additional license to be included. I would say in addition, for the security connection of Azure Key Vault, there are additional like a minor cost on the usage of Azure Key Vault connection. It's like a $3 for 1 million operations, something like that. And it's like a security guidance which we must follow at this moment. Yeah. Does this tax rate API currently support commerce for tax calculation on post or in a call center setup? So this API, I would say commerce is on the roadmap of our tax calculation integration. So at this moment, API is not supporting commerce, but we are like evaluating, and it is on our roadmap. Who can get the files from, and where can I download them? For the files mentioned in the demo, I think you mean the tax data model from the ISVs. So when you upgrade to 10.039, you shall find the mentioned feature in the feature management, the enable external tax solution provider for tax calculation service, that feature. And you click on the learn more link on that feature to jump to the Microsoft Learn portal and find the external ISV link. One is Vertex, the other one is Avalara. The landing page is being constructed. It will be updated to the link shortly, and then you shall be able to find the guidance from both ISVs to learn their contact team and how to get the files and their service credentials. You always need an external tax solution provider. What happens if the customer has a tax number in several countries, but no tax solution provider? Can this also be set? Yes. So actually, you don't always need an external tax solution provider, as we have launched tax calculation service for over 2 years. So we understand for Europe VAT region, you have pretty much already enabled the tax calculation for your legal entities in Europe. So you can continue to do that with the same functionality in tax calculation. And right now, because the API is mostly tested and ready for the United States, you can, for instance, only enable the relevant functionality to connect an external tax solution provider for your US legal entity. And for the rest legal entities in other countries, you can still remain in the tax calculation functionalities, and you maintain those configurations and the feature versions yourself. Don't use the external tax solution provider. It's all supported. Yeah. So then next question is QST, PST, HST able to be posted to separate GL accounts for Canada? So right now, while we are talking about the functionality in tax calculation, so right for tax calculation, I think Canada is already supported by the tax calculation service, but we do have already collected feedback that there are further tax types in Canada, which is like more than sales tax and just harmonized sales tax HST. And I believe this is also like on our roadmap to further and support Canadian tax in a more fully functional way. Then next, what should be the right pattern to extend tax calculation service applicability rules to the financial dimensions? I don't know if we can, Katerina or Maple, if you can answer the question.
So to extend the tax calculation applicability rule to financial dimension, for this, that I always split it into 2 points. One is if you are using the universal test rate API feature, then we already have the financial dimensions in the API, and also the ISVs were supported in this area. And if you need to specifically not using the ISV solution, you only want to using our standard test calculation, then you will need to do some extend the configuration and also adding some logic in X++ to, for example, you may have multiple financial dimension. Then you need to add multiple fields in the configuration and also add some code in the X++ side to pass value from the transactions to the configuration. Then you can use the configuration in the application rules. Okay, so I will put a link. I will put 2 links related to how to add the new field in the test integration and add it in the configuration. So if you are referring to the second scenario, you can take a reference. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, next one. We are implementing a tax ISV now in 10.038 and running into some issues regarding posting use tax-based on taxation rules. Would it be better practice to wait and implement with this API feature? So we would say that you pretty much can evaluate also the API approach, which has been like now in the public preview in 10.039, and I believe in 10.038 we have done the private preview in the previous release, so you can like try to approach us and already have a early evaluate on the new API feature. Yeah. Next question can we utilize this expansion of tax functionality for the payroll solution and replace with our own rates or another provider? So again, so like we have shared in our overview for the tax calculation update, our direction is to integrate more first-party applications. So for your requirement, we really appreciate that you share your thoughts and comments with us, and we would definitely look into the further application integration point for tax calculation. This is matching our roadmap, and we'll continuously working on integrating to further first-party applications. Yeah. Okay, so with that, I think we conclude today's session. Okay, then thanks to our presenters and to you, our audience, for attending